Hi, it's time for a chime video. So what you're looking at is the motor and gear drive assembly out of a NuTone Series 2 8-note doorbell or door chime, and this one actually is code-dated 1939. This came out of a chime that a customer brought in for repair, and unfortunately there's some problem in the gear drive assembly where the shaft won't turn, or it totally breaks loose and it just freewheels and spins, and there's something broken inside of it. I don't have any idea what's actually inside of this, but we're going to see if we can find out. I did find the customer a replacement, and that's in his chime, and it works fine. And I told him part of the deal was I get to have the old one because I need to take it apart. So that's what we're going to do first, is we're going to take the gear drive assembly off the motor itself. And it's held on with 4 screws and nuts that go through the frame of the motor. That one's already off. I don't know how easily this is all going to come apart because I've never actually taken one of these apart before. Since these are mostly unobtainable parts, and we were only just lucky that we were able to find one to replace the customer's chime, we have one to play with. So this is the frame of the motor and the coil. This is still good, so we'll hold on to that right now. I don't know how this is exactly put together. This is the armature of the motor. It's kind of a unique design, and there's this collar that comes off with a cork gasket that helps seal the motor against this. And I don't know if or how this comes off. It would be nice if it did. So let's take a quick look at it under the magnifier and see what we see. It looks to me like it's probably pressed on to the shaft. So before we get too far into that, let's take these other nuts off. I'm going to take these threaded rods with nuts off. These are the ones that go through the motor frame and then ultimately through the case of the chime to mount this all onto the case. It's kind of interesting to work on something like this if you think about the fact that in 1939, 1940, somebody sat there and did exactly what I'm doing right now. We'll also take these loose if we can. Get a little screwdriver here. Because I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know if it's going to come apart easily or not. I have a feeling it would be more likely not. But we want to save everything that we can from this, because even if this is not hugely successful or successful at all, we want to save the screws and nuts and things because they are original, and one day odds are somebody's chime will come in for service and it'll be missing something like screws and nuts, or even if it's just one. And if we've got an original one that we can put back in it, so much the better. You would think for as oily as this is, and yes, it is oily, hence the gloves, it would be easier to take apart. Now the gear drive assembly, there is actually a fill hole, and it would have had some kind of oil put in it when it was manufactured to keep the gears inside. I assume it's gears, lubricated when it spins. That's the opening for it right there. And so now we're down to just this. And the way this should work is that when this spins a whole lot, it's spun by the field coil of the motor. It's supposed to turn the gears and turn the output shaft. So if we could get that off, I don't know how this is put on here, whether it's a press fit. Oh yeah. So it's already about halfway off. It seems like it's just pressed onto the, like a spindle. At least I think it is. Or not. Maybe that's... that was probably actually when it pulled up, it probably... it pulled up out of the gearbox more than the little rotor came off. So I'm not sure how this is held on exactly. There is a little hole in the center of it. And I suppose if you had a really small drift or something, you might be able to tap it out, but I don't know that I'm going to do that. So here's what we're going to do. The way this is assembled, the body of all of this is brass, and then there's this round plate here, and then you can see the silver. The silver is all solder. So however this was manufactured, it was all, I would assume, it was all assembled, and then this plate was placed on at the end, and then someone soldered it to seal it to keep the oil inside. And you can actually see there's places where the joint, it looks like the solder is kind of cracked. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take this outside, I'm going to flush out all the oil out of it that I possibly can, and then we're going to heat this up. And what we're going to do, because to take this apart we need to melt the solder and see if we can get the end cap off, because I want to see what's inside. The best way I can think of to do this to start with is I'm going to take this, and once it's cleaned up and I've got all the oil out of it, I'm going to put it in our shop toaster oven, the one we use when we work on the Telecron gear drive rotor assemblies, especially in clocks. And I'm going to heat this up to as hot as the toaster oven can make it. Now, to melt the solder, we're going to need about 750 degrees to melt the solder properly. But if we get the whole thing up to temperature first, then it won't act like a big heat sink and pull all the heat away from when we try to heat up the solder, and that should make it go better. So I'm going to stop the video, I'm going to clean this up, and then we're going to heat it up, and when it gets up to temperature, then I'll be back. Okay, some time has passed. Our gear drive assembly's been in the oven heating up, and I gotta go fast on this to see if I can I don't want it to cool down too much, so I'm gonna go get it and I'll be right back. Okay, here it is. It's smoking hot. It's not smoking hot because I think it's that hot. I think it's smoking hot because of the oil that's still there. See if we can get this clamped in here a little bit. Okay, that should be good. So what we're going to do is we're going to try this. I've got this small little, this is actually one of those kitchen torches, you know, the kind that you make like creme brulee with. I've got bigger like propane powered torches, but I don't really want to, see, we've got a flame going there. I don't really want to bust that out if I don't have to. This is quite exciting. We don't usually have fire in the shop. I don't know if this will... Oh yeah, it's melting the solder. Yep. Let's see if we can get some movement here. Well, there we go. Hey, that was pretty good. Ooh, look, it's gear drive flambe. Okay, I gotta stop now. I gotta go turn the fans on, and as soon as everything cools down, I'll be back. Whoops, that was an accident. I didn't do that on purpose. Honest. Okay, the flames are out. The smoke has cleared. Well, for the most part. And here's our disassemblable gear drive assembly. So what I'm going to do as I go along is one of the things that I recommend that all of you folks do when you take things apart, which is I'm going to take some pictures of it as we go, because I need to document it. If I can get it to focus. There we go. Alright, there's one. So let's go ahead and we'll take the cap off again. I just sat it back on here. And what we have on the other side, so we have the brass disc and the shoulder with the drive that comes through it. And then on this side there's a gear. And then inside there's this round piece here, which I think is metal. And everything is covered with a lot of really old grease or oil, and it's all sort of becomes sticky and hard and like baked on. That could be from the heat also. So if we lift this out, oh, we've got to take a picture of it before we take it out. Alright. If we take this out, there's a gear stuck to it, which goes there. This is metal. It's fairly heavy, and there's little holes around the hole in the center, and those are the holes that the little shafts that go through the gears fit through to hold them up straight. And then on the bottom there's this like triangular piece, which I'm not sure exactly what that's for or why that's there, but when you put this together, this would go through it like this. So it looks like this piece could be the pivot piece for the shaft that goes through the gear on the inside of the plate there. So we'll put those aside. And then inside here there are four gear drive assemblies, and they're all sort of kittywampus at the moment. So let's see if we can sort of put them back where they belong. See, in the bottom of the case there's little sockets where the gear shafts fit in. Like that. So let's take another picture. Alright. And what's interesting is this hasn't been opened up since it was made in 1939. So that's kind of interesting. So let's go ahead and put this over here so we have something to put things on. And we're going to lift the gears out one at a time, and I'm going to try to keep them in order. So this one, see, this is all really gummed up. So it's just a little tiny gear with another little gear on the end. We're going to call that one number 4. And here's another one. We'll call that one number 3. And then there's this one, which we'll call number 2. And there's this one, which we'll call number 1. That's the order they go in. And they go in, it's counterclockwise, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then actually what I see in here, there's another little gear. It was lying in the bottom in the grease. Maybe that's our culprit gear. Maybe it goes on one of these other ones or something, or maybe it was jamming everything up. I don't know. That's the mystery gear. Because there are actually 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 sockets, 5 little places where gears can fit in. So that's kind of interesting. So let's take a picture of this over here. because we have to keep this all organized, because hopefully maybe we'll be able to fix it and put it back together. Then I'll have a spare that works. So this is cooled down enough that we can probably take this out. And what's interesting is, so when you spin this, it turns the little spindle on the inside that's connected to the other end, and I would suspect that that's where perhaps our mystery gear fits in. Like that, because it'd have to be something that would allow that, so when the motor is energized and this spins the spindle, and you have to have something on the inside. See, you can see in the center, you can see the gear turn. You have to have something that it has to turn a gear that turns all the other gears, would be my guess. So that perhaps is where our mystery gear fits in. Don't know, but we can try. The other thing that's interesting is here, this is our fill hole right here. You can see the screwdriver come through. That's where the oil goes in. But then also here, there's this little brass tube right here, and that is open to the outside right there. So I think that's some kind of vent tube to make sure it doesn't build up pressure or something, I don't know. But it's all kind of gunky inside and everything. So what I'm going to do with this, because if we can make it work again, that would be good. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take this and I'm going to soak it in some solvent for a while, as I will the gears, and see if I can get it all cleaned up and everything, and then maybe we can put it back together and see how it actually works. So we'll call this part one of a multi-part series of trying to figure out how a gear drive assembly from a 1939 NuTone Series 2 chime works. If you found this interesting and helpful, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube, because that always helps us a little bit. If you know something about this, if you're looking at this and you go, oh yeah, I know what that is. They use that in some other kind of something or another, and I know all about those. Leave some comments down below and educate all of us, so we're not all groping around in the dark trying to figure out how all this is supposed to go. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell, and when you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.